8 o'clock. Now, South Africa, like many countries in Africa, grapple with the challenge of youth unemployment. Now, recent statistics from the 17th of May this year indicate that a staggering 45.5% unemployment rate among young individuals aged between the ages of 15 and 34 years old, significantly higher than the national average of 32.9%. Now, today I'm in conversation with Fentse Malatji, digital strategist at Youth Capital, joining us live via Zoom. Fentse is here to talk about the innovative Thetha ngeUnemployment campaign, a very powerful initiative designed to spark crucial conversations about youth unemployment in South Africa. Fentse, welcome to the morning show. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks, Khosi. I'm really excited to talk about our new card game.
It's great to be chatting to you about this, and I think it's a very important conversation, and I love how you've refreshed it and make it in a way that a lot of people can be able to engage in conversation about it. But before we talk about the campaign, let's talk about the work that the Youth Capital is doing and the mission that it has to achieve in South Africa. Tell us about that.
So at Youth Capital, we're on a mission to ensure that all young people in South Africa have the skills, the opportunity, as well as the support to access opportunities and become economically productive. And we do this through advocating for policy change to solve youth unemployment. So we talk to young people when we make sure that their experiences are at the center of any policies to address youth unemployment. And we also ensure that we're looking at research. So we marry those two, research as well as people's experiences, to make sure policies actually solve the real challenges on the ground.
Yeah, and I mean, it's kind of easy to kind of do that work and figure out the policies, do the research and sort of end it there. But it's another thing to then come up with an entire campaign to highlight the bigger picture of what's happening with unemployment. So maybe tell us the story and what inspired the creation of the Thetha ngeUnemployment campaign that you're currently running.
So I think this campaign has been in the works for at least 2 years. And it initially started with conversations with researchers, civil society, youth collectives in the same space. And we realized that there was a powerful way of bridging the gap between people who have different experiences in South Africa. And that's how the campaign came about. We decided that, youth unemployment isn't an issue just affecting young people, it affects everyone. And it's important that people come off the sidelines and start supporting young people. Yeah,
and we tend to forget about how much it affects everybody, because it really tapers down over the generations, over the different industries. We start to see the effects of having not having young people, rather, in all these different industries. Now, you spoke about the campaign, and then you had a box of cards saying it's a game of cards. Maybe explain to us how this very important conversation of unemployment with young people has now turned into a game that is Thetha ngeUnemployment. Tell us about that.
So we work in the civil society sector, and there are certain ways that we talk about youth unemployment. If you're a researcher as well, a lot of big words like systemic challenges and advocacy. And what we're trying to do is make sure that all South Africans can have these conversations. So whether you're a young person, you're an older person, you're in civil society, you're friends with someone, you're partners with someone, you can kind of have these conversations around what results in youth unemployment. And with this card game, we have simple questions like, where do you go to ask for advice about work? And that comes from research where we found that young people don't have the connections they need to find employment opportunities or education opportunities. We also have questions like, do you think that systemic challenges, or do you think that the system has resulted in youth unemployment? And that's just to make sure that anyone can come in and have these conversations. And what we're trying to do is build critical mass to put pressure on decision makers.
And I think a lot of people aren't really talking about what that looks like, or creating space to have those conversations. We kind of just talk about it and pass it by, saying, oh man, unemployment, and just leave it there, but not really realizing what that has etched into the lives of young people. In actual fact, statistically speaking, it's mentioned that 8 in 10 young people have never actually had a formal job. And this is something that's really staggering. Maybe let me ask you this, especially now when you're putting it together into the game. What do you think are some of those structural issues that contribute to this statistic?
So what we've done at Youth Capital is, when we first started in 2018, we went around South Africa asking young people, okay, why is it that you can't find a job? What is blocking access to opportunity? opportunities. And we formulated a thing called action plan, which just outlines challenges from education to trying to find a job, to existing employment opportunities like public employment programs. And I think what we found is that with education, for example, young people are struggling to get their matric certificate. And if you go to places like ShopRite or Pick and Pay, they say, okay, where's your matric certificate? You can't get a job without it. With transitioning into the workplace, the cost of looking for work is a burden that young people can't carry. It costs about 1.4 thousand rand a month to find a job in South Africa, whereas young people are only getting just below 1,300 per month. So these are some of the structural challenges that are preventing young people from finding employment opportunities. And at Youth Capital, we were thinking, how do we make sure that everyone understands the weight of this problem, but how do we make sure that they also understand their individual responsibility within a collective in terms of solving this issue? And that's where this game came about. Having these conversations is so important because this is the first step to solving youth unemployment.
I've got two questions to ask you before we wrap up our time, Fentse. And I think the first one is to go, we're speaking about unemployment of the young people and we're really shedding light on it. The game is encouraging conversations. We're finding out how the system has got a part to play. We're finding out about our education and the lack thereof is playing a part to play for various reasons. But are you finding that employers, private sector, public sector, all these different people that have role-playing potential to be able to employ young people are actually now coming to the table based on the research that you've done, that the policies are being implemented and young people are being employed? Do you find that that is starting to happen, or is it a thing that they're paying attention but not much action is happening?
So at Youth Capital, we've done research and we found that small businesses, we actually worked with small businesses, we found that they were actually creating about 1,800 jobs per day in South Africa between 2016 and 2019. Unfortunately, due to admin barriers, due to lack of support, and also because, employers or small businesses, they can't access incentives like the employment tax incentive, there are a lot of barriers preventing them from creating more job opportunities in South Africa. And I think that's where our advocacy comes in. So we have this card game where people are having these important conversations, but this is also driving our advocacy. And one of our points and one of our priorities is ensuring that small businesses have the support they need. They live in an economy that's actually growing, because that's also one barrier. They live in an economy that's growing that allows them to then create opportunities. So employers they want to come to the table, but they don't have the support to do that. I'm really hoping that we're going to start to see growing continuously. That over 1,000 number is definitely encouraging to see that daily happen. And the last question that I have for you, before we talk about how to get involved and catch up with the campaign and get the cards, is there's young people that's listening to this conversation right now and they're feeling a little bit defeated in terms of the hunt for employment. What encouragement do you have to them to encourage them to really speak to where they find themselves currently? I think being a young person in South Africa is a survival sport. It's something that we like to say. So we really do empathize and understand the pain of young people in South Africa. As a young person, I think the way that we step into our power is to join a community. And essentially, that's what we are at Youth Capital. We're a community that's ensuring that, we put pressure on decision makers and we make sure they can't ignore lived experiences. So I think the only way to push forward is to do it alongside other people who are passionate and who care about this issue. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, if you're isolated, it's definitely going to be a lot harder. As we wrap up our time, Fentse, for people who want to be a part of this campaign, you want to get the deck of cards to encourage conversation in their circles where they work, play, and be able to be around different people, where can they get that? So you can access the game on our website, youthcapital.co.za. You can also follow us on any social media platform. Our handle is @YouthCapitalSA, and you'll see that there are lots of different people around South Africa playing this game. So you can step into the fun, step into your power, and join the conversation.
Fentse, thank you so much for joining us on the morning show this morning. It's beautiful to see young people really take in the effort, the time, the research, and whatever else is needed to be able to highlight the plight of youth unemployment with this particular campaign. So thank you so much for joining us this morning. That's how we wrap up this conversation right here on the morning show with Fentse Malatji, sharing some absolutely valuable insights, because we always know about youth unemployment, but I think it's great to be able to get the numbers in perspective and, more importantly, actually have those conversations. And it's actually clear that the hashtag Thetha ngeUnemployment campaign is not only innovative but also essential in addressing the pressing issues of youth unemployment in South Africa. So for our viewers, be sure to get involved, play the game, join the conversation, and visit their website at www.youthcapital.co.za. And together we can make